So, after all the drama of the Exodus from Egypt and getting the law at Sinai, the book of Exodus wraps up with one of the most incredible construction projects you'll ever read about. And listen, this isn't just about building some fancy tent. No, this is the story of God preparing a place to come and live right there in the middle of his people. Okay, let's get into it.
But that right there brings up a huge question, one that really drives these final chapters. I mean, think about it. How can a holy, perfect God just set up house among a flawed, imperfect people? How is that even possible? Well, the tabernacle is the answer. It's this meticulously designed space where heaven and earth could actually meet.
So we're going to follow this amazing project chapter by chapter. We'll start with the people's just astonishing response. Then we'll look at the sacred craftsmanship and build all the way up to that breathtaking final moment when God himself literally moves in.
All right, let's kick things off with chapter 36. The divine blueprints have been delivered. Now it's time to gather the materials and find the workers to make it all happen.
You know, God doesn't just provide the plan, he provides the talent. He specifically fills two men, Bezalel and Oholiab, with this divine wisdom and skill. You can think of them as the master craftsmen, the project leads who are going to make sure every single detail is absolutely perfect.
And what happens next is, well, it's nothing short of astonishing. You have to remember, these are former slaves. They're wandering in the desert. But when the call for materials goes out, their response is just this wave of overwhelming generosity. They brought their offerings every single morning. It actually gets to the point where the craftsmen have to go to Moses and tell him, "You've got to make the people stop." They had so much material, gold, silver, fine linens. It was, and I quote, "more than enough for all the work." Can you even imagine that? They literally had to be told to stop giving.
Okay, so now we're in chapter 37. With all those materials gathered, Bezalel, our master craftsman, gets to work on the most sacred items that are going to furnish the inside of the tabernacle. First up, the big one, the Ark of the Covenant. It's a box made of this really durable shittim wood, but it's completely covered, inside and out, with pure gold. On top of it sits the mercy seat, which is solid gold. This is where God's presence would dwell, and his mercy would cover the people's sins. It was the very place of atonement. And then hammered right out of that same piece of gold are two cherubim, with their wings stretched out, protectively covering this incredibly holy space.
But the ark isn't alone in there. Bezalel also crafts the table for the shewbread, that magnificent 7-branched lampstand, and the altar of incense. Are you noticing a theme here? Pure gold. Only the absolute best materials were used for the very heart of the sanctuary.
You see, every detail here is precise, every material is precious, and every single action follows God's command to the letter. This isn't just construction, it's a profound act of worship. It just goes to show you that the work of our hands, when it's done with excellence for a holy purpose, has incredibly deep spiritual meaning.
So in chapter 38, our focus shifts. We move from the golden interior to the bronze exterior, the courtyard. And kind of like a good project manager, Moses also does a full audit of all the donated materials, to make sure everything is accounted for.
Out in the court stands this large altar of burnt offering, made of wood but overlaid with brass or bronze. And then there's the laver, a basin for washing, which has this amazing detail. It was crafted from the polished brass mirrors donated by the women who served at the entrance. It's such a powerful picture of how even everyday items were transformed for holy use. And that final tally of materials, it is just staggering. We're talking about over 29 talents of gold. That's more than a ton. Plus 100 talents of silver and 70 talents of brass. This really helps you visualize the sheer scale of that more than enough offering we talked about earlier. It was just an immense, collective act of worship.
Next up, chapter 39. So, you've got a holy place, right? Well, you need holy people to serve in it. This chapter details the creation of the sacred garments for Aaron, the high priest, and his sons.
The high priest's garments were unbelievably intricate. The ephod was this vest-like garment woven with actual gold thread. Attached to it was the breastplate, which held 12 different precious stones, and each one was engraved with the name of one of the 12 tribes of Israel. So Aaron would literally carry the people on his heart as he stood before God.
And maybe most powerfully of all, on the golden plate that was fastened to the high priest's turban, these words were engraved: "Holiness to the Lord." This wasn't just some label, it was the mission statement. It was the identifying mark of their entire purpose before God.
So at the end of the chapter, all these finished pieces are brought to Moses for inspection. And the verdict is in. The people and the craftsmen had followed the divine blueprint perfectly.
Every single detail was done as the Lord had commanded, and Moses blessed them for it.
And that brings us to the grand finale in chapter 40. All the individual components are complete. Now it is time for the final assembly and the dedication. This is the moment we've all been waiting for.
On the very first day of the first month, God gives Moses the final command, and step by step, Moses erects the tabernacle, he places the ark, the table, the lampstand, he anoints everything with holy oil, setting it all apart. He dresses Aaron and his sons. Every single action is a final, careful act of obedience.
And then we get this simple but incredibly profound statement. It echoes the completion of creation back in Genesis. The text just says, "So Moses finished the work." Everything is ready. The stage is set.
And then, immediately, something supernatural happens. The same pillar of cloud that had guided them through the desert now descends and covers the tent. This is it. This is the visible, undeniable sign that God has arrived.
And here it is, the climax of the entire book of Exodus. The tangible, weighty, radiant presence, the very glory of the Lord fills the tabernacle. It's so powerful, so overwhelming, that even Moses himself cannot enter. God has moved in. That question we started with, it's been answered.
You see, this incredible structure was the focal point of God's presence with Israel for hundreds of years. But now that the tent is gone, it leaves us with a pretty powerful question to think about. How and where do we encounter that same divine presence in our world today?